Adept weapons have always been the pinnacle of aspirational loot in Destiny, starting all the way back in Destiny 1. The prestige of going to the lighthouse for the first time. The rush of Templar dropping your first Adept Fatebringer. These types of emotions rushed over us because these weapons were special. They gave us the power fantasy that made the hardest endgame activities feel like they were worth it. They respected our time investment, rewarding the struggle of difficult endgame content with weapons that truly impacted the way we played the game. In Destiny 2, I just haven't had that same feeling. The weapons are great for sure, but the Adept Mod system just doesn't hit that same note for me. The prestige of Destiny 2 Adept Weapons starts and stops at the parentheses next to the weapon's name. To me, they're just a trophy that I show off to my friends. After all, the difference between a normal and Adept Fatebringer is what? Adept Big Ones? If you want Adept Weapons to remain aspirational loot, you need to make them stand out from everything else in the game. But in their current state, the mods just don't justify the time investment required to get them. This has been an issue for a while now, but no one's really talked about it because prior to Witch Queen's release, they were still technically the best weapons in the game. However, Witch Queen introduced weapon crafting, which not only allows you to invest in a weapon of your choice, but with enough grind, you can make that weapon extremely powerful. Perks like enhanced autoloading, enhanced overflow, and enhanced adaptive munitions have completely changed the weapon meta and are quickly leaving Adept weapons in the dust. While I think it's great that all players have access to powerful perks, it becomes problematic when they greatly outshine loot that comes from the game's hardest content. Most craftable weapons are relatively easy to obtain, and if they're more powerful than endgame Adept loot, what incentive do players actually have to complete those activities? Everyone deserves cool stuff, but the loot system as it stands right now is actually a detriment to the game's longevity. A recent example of this is actually Master Vow. When it launched a couple weeks ago, player feedback made it very clear that the loot just isn't worth our time. The weapons don't roll with enhanced perks, and they're essentially just carbon copies of what you earn from normal mode. In fact, the normal raid weapons are significantly better than the Adept loot because they can be crafted and have the ability to be upgraded with enhanced perks, while the Adept loot does not. So once you've got your raid seal, what reason do we have to replay Master Vow? This same issue plagues Grandmaster Nightfalls and Trials of Osiris, and will impact any future activity that grants Adept loot as well. If Adepts can't roll enhanced perks and are basically the same as the standard versions of our guns, why suffer through Lightblade or Bubble Warfare in Trials other than to appease your inner collector? Whether it's Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft, Lost Ark, or Destiny 2, the MMO structure is very simple. The best loot needs to come from the hardest, most aspirational content. You need to keep players invested long term, because if you don't, other games are going to scratch that sense of progression that we're all looking for. So what can we do to fix this? Before we dive into any solutions, drop a like if you're enjoying the video so far, and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this in the future. When Adepts were introduced to Destiny 2, the Adept Mods system was met with mixed reviews. Some of the mods were decent, and since we didn't have anything better at the game at the time, we kind of just accepted them as a nice little added benefit. But here's why this system just doesn't do Adept Weapons justice. First off, we rely on RNG to get the perks that we want. And to be clear, I'm actually okay with this. I want something to chase in the endgame, and if that means that I need to farm for my God-rolled Fatebringer, that's cool with me. But what I'm not okay with is going through all of that grind just to get a weapon that's arguably worse than the craftable loot that's much easier to obtain. And once I get that weapon, I then have to farm even more for Adept Mods, which is the main benefit of Adept Weapons anyway. If these were insanely strong, I might be able to get behind this, but as it stands right now, these mods just aren't nearly good enough to warrant that type of grind, especially in the era of craftable weapons. Let's start with a few examples. Adept Backup Mag sounds amazing in theory, but unfortunately, Destiny caps your magazine size, and the standard backup mag actually reaches the cap on most weapons already. This means that if I try to slot Adept Backup Mag on most of my weapons, I'm literally just losing 15 handling to reach the same magazine size that the standard mod provides. I'm not sure if this was just an oversight, but as it stands right now, this provides no value. In fact, it's actually a detriment to run it. What about Adept Big Ones? I'm gonna be honest with you, this mod is extremely overrated. It doesn't allow you to do more damage. It's the same 7.7% damage bonus that both Major Spec and Boss Spec provide. It just gives you a bit more flexibility when damaging bosses and majors with the same gun. This has niche use cases on heavy weapons and Grandmaster Nightfalls, but popular DPS options tend to utilize things like triple tap and 4th times the charm, which make damage mods much less beneficial. You actually want to run backup mag because you'll increase your DPS by having to reload less often, and that 7.7% damage bonus is almost never worth it. Okay, but Adept Icarus Grip has to be worth the grind, right? Right? Well, no, not really. First off, it only comes from Trials of Osiris. You'd only ever use this in PvP, and when we really look at what this mod does, it only gives a +5 to range over standard Icarus Grip, which is what, like half a meter of damage fall off in PvP? Not to mention the fact that this mod and aerial gunplay in general are getting major reworks in Season 17, so who knows if this will even be good anymore. I think you guys get the point. The first and most realistic fix would be to give Adept Weapons enhanced perks. Though this isn't the most creative solution in the world, it does have some value. As I noted earlier, Adept Weapons are typically some of the strongest in the game, so if they have the ability to roll with enhanced perks like craftable weapons do, they'll remain the most desirable loot to farm for. If Bungie decides to go down this route, please have these weapons drop with enhanced perks. It'll spare us the monotonous red box grind, which I feel like is the least they can do to reward us for completing the hardest endgame content. Though this doesn't fix the Adept mod issue, it's certainly a step in the right direction. I want to caveat this fix with one simple point. If the perks on Adept Weapons aren't unique, none of this matters. We only need so many outlaw rampage weapons before that roll becomes extremely stale. Once you have 5 of them, you've got them all. If the perks are unique, people will grind for them. And you know what did this better than anything else in the game? Deep Stone Crypt. Reconstruction is still, to this day, over a year and a half after the raid's release, one of the most elite PvE perks in all of Destiny 2. For those who aren't familiar, it gives you passive reload and overflows your magazine to double the mag size. It's unique, and DSC is the only place that you can get it. Now, if there was a master version of this raid that dropped enhanced perks, where the magazine size was even larger and it passively reloaded 50% faster, people would go crazy grinding out these weapons, and it would keep people engaged with endgame content longer than ever before. Now you're probably thinking, above, these weapons would be broken. There's no way Bungie would let that happen, and I totally hear you on that. But if Bungie wants us to engage in true endgame content, they need to make it worth our time. But let's say Bungie is really concerned about power creep. What else could they do to make Adept Weapons unique? Cosmetic rewards. And not just another raid sparrow that can't compete with always on time. I'm not sure why Bungie is so afraid of diving into the cosmetic side of the game, especially when in a past TWAB, they noted that they'd no longer be putting activity-themed cosmetics in Eververse, and instead, we'd receive those items through gameplay. And they've done this a little bit. The Vault Strider ship from Master Vogue is probably the best example in recent memory, but they can do so much more. Imagine when completing Master Raid challenges that you had a small chance of getting an Adept Weapon ornament alongside the weapon that drops from that encounter. I'd be there in a heartbeat. Make the chances low, maybe even 10% like raid exotics, with an increasing chance each time you complete the challenge. It encourages replayability, and Destiny is the end game. I still remember roaming around the Destiny 1 tower, seeing badass guardians rocking the Age of Triumph raid armor, and thinking, man, I want to look like that. Cosmetic rewards are a powerful way to motivate players, and the more skins, auras, and ornaments that we can get to differentiate ourselves from one another, the better. To be honest, Adepts could benefit from both of these changes, and I don't think this is too much to ask either, seeing that both enhanced perks and weapon ornaments already exist within Destiny 2. Though the Adept Weapon problem may not get fixed this season or next, sharing this video can help raise awareness of these issues and can help make an impact on future content. Do you guys think endgame loot is a problem in Destiny 2? What would you do to fix it? I'm excited to discuss with you guys down in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.